Hello, this is Real World Audio, and I'm telling you 3 reasons why loudspeakers suck. And yep, it's 2 plus 1 reasons, and it's 2 plus 1 because there's one reason you can do something about it without being an engineering genius. So if you don't know anything about loudspeaker design or you don't want to reach into your loudspeakers, you can still fix one reason why loudspeakers suck. If you want to fix the other 2 reasons, then you have to get into various levels of involvement. And there one fix requires moderate level of intervention, and the last level of fix requires major surgery. And now let's go through these 3 reasons. So basically I named them reason 1, 2, 3, and reason 3 is the one you can fix. Reason 2 is the one where you need some skills and where you have to open up your loudspeaker cabinet. And reason number 1, actually you have to build a new cabinet to fix that. So actually number 1 reason why loudspeakers suck, I mean those ones that suck, which are not properly built, and reason number 1 is that loudspeaker size is severely compromised to meet the price point and the market demand. In brief, this means that loudspeakers are way too small. And basically you pick most of the loudspeakers that are on the market. If they were placed in a bigger cabinet, they would sound more natural, more alive, and much more dynamic. And today, as we see a lot of small speakers, the good thing with that is that we can buy it very cheap compared to a large cabinet, and it's very easy to place it in a small room or medium rooms without taking up much space. But the side effect is just extreme dynamic compression. And now we are pretty much like the second, third generation of people who grew up and lived with ever smaller loudspeakers, and now we don't even realize what sort of handicap this thing is. And now let's go and move. There's not much to do about this unless you can afford like a bigger space, or you can make the decision that okay, I'm just going for a bigger cabinet that allows greater dynamics. But apart from that, actually even small speakers can sound pretty decent, pretty much fun, and I love plenty of small speakers. But when I play the small speaker and after that I hook up a big one, the difference is just astonishing. And yep, that's it. So let's go for a second point. Poor engineering. That's the number 2 reason why loudspeakers suck. And this is just as prevalent as reason number 1. And the same thing is the reason behind it, to meet a price point, to make those speakers easy to sell. And yep, what we usually think is true. You get what you pay for, and when the prices are coming down and things are suspiciously cheap, that's because there's suspiciously cheap parts inside. Their physics has its rules, and which can't really be broken. And just like in cuisine, if you are making a dish, you need quality ingredients to prepare a nice meal. And when you go down to like a fast food restaurants, then you are not getting the prime choice meat. And the same thing applies to loudspeakers. And sadly, in the loudspeaker industry, things can get quite rough. And a couple of those things that we see happening is inadequate crossover. So that's the number one area where the price point is compromised, putting in very, very cheap parts for the crossover, and when you look at the cheap loudspeaker, most cases it's not even the size that brings down the sound so much, but mostly it's the poor quality of the crossover. And people think that what mostly matters for a loudspeaker is the quality of the drivers. But eventually the quality of the components, I mean the crossover is even more important. So if your crossover is not good, then you can have the best drivers in the best cabinet. It's still going to be a very poorly loudspeaker. Second reason with poor engineering is poor cabinet structure. Now there's a lot of emphasis on this when you look at reviews, when you look at stereophile, absolute sound. They all like to go on and on about poor cabinet structure, but they only look at half of the picture. So that is they say that the cabinets are not dampened enough, and that's true for those cabinets which want to be inert, which are using their ability to stay inert and cause lower levels of additional resonances. But in most cases, especially at a cheaper version, this is not done properly. So it's very problematic. But the same thing is true for those cabinets who are active cabinets. And the industry is trying to sell us the marketing garbage that live cabinets are bad and inert cabinets the only way to go. No, that's hogwash. Both of these philosophies work if they are done well. And the problem with live cabinet is not that it's a live cabinet. The problem with them is when they are poorly done. So basically their resonance patterns are not controlled, and then the whole thing is just turned into a cacophony of uncontrolled mass vibrations, which is not good. If it's an active cabinet and it's properly designed, that's just as much box colorless or doesn't add any distraction to the sound as a completely inert cabinet. And looking at the third part of poor engineering, that's poorly matched drivers. So which means when you have a two-way loudspeaker or three-way, then the tweeter and the woofer, or maybe there's a mid-range for a three-way, they are not properly matched. So their levels are not the same, and there's a great mismatch. So one's sensitivity or efficiency is much higher or lower than the other. That can cause a big problem. And also if there's a big difference between the driver cone materials, their dampening, their current demand, so how they interact with the amplifier, like the tweeter interacts very differently from the woofer, then you will get a schizophrenic behavior. So half of your spectrum will behave very different from the other half. So these things are combined to a poor engineering, and that is shoved into a loudspeaker that doesn't allow any dynamics. Then we have a big problem. Now, if engineering is solid, it's very good, then even if we put it in a small loudspeaker, it's still okay. This is why there are plenty of very good small loudspeakers, and you don't have to feel bad that your loudspeaker is small. You don't need a bigger one if it works really well for you. Plus, there is the fact that small speakers work really well in small rooms, and you cannot put a giant loudspeaker into a tiny room. So basically, for a small room, small speaker, that's a nice choice. Yet if you have a big room, there you want to have a big loudspeaker. Now, third one, improper application. This is what you can do something about, and it means that it has two things: room placement and amplifier match. So room placement is that you are not placing the loudspeaker where they want to work optimally. So there are some loudspeakers which are designed so you pull them away from the walls, and there they sound their best, and away from the walls always, that's where you get the best imaging out of a pair of loudspeakers. And the closer you go towards the wall, the imaging becomes hazier and less clean. Now there are some loudspeakers which require them to be placed close to a wall, or maybe to be placed in the corner. In those cases, you want to keep them where the loudspeaker manufacturer recommends it, and to get the bass response out of them. If you move them away from close to the wall, close to the corner, then you will lose a lot of bass, and they might become very shrill. But in the case of every loudspeaker, there's always a balance. All of them have an optimal place in your room. All of them talk to the wall, they all talk to the corner, they talk to the ceiling, they talk to your floor, and you want to play around with their placement, try it out. If they are like in your room, then try pushing them closer to the wall, play around, see how it sounds, and then you might get very pleasantly surprised. And maybe you already have them in their optimal placement, but maybe they are far from optimal right now. And by changing their location, you can dramatically change the sound of a loudspeaker to such a degree that will be a much bigger change compared to getting another pair of loudspeakers and putting them into the same place where your current loudspeakers are. And the second problem with improper application, that's just as prevalent as bad incorrect room placement, is amplifier mismatch. So when you use the wrong type of amplifier for your loudspeaker, and that's especially true for high efficiency loudspeakers and tube amplifiers. So as a general rule, if you have a high efficiency loudspeaker, mate it with a tube amplifier, and vice versa. And if you have a low efficiency loudspeaker, then in most cases you will be happier with a solid state amplifier that's very happy to dump a lot of power, to dump a lot of current into the loudspeaker. Yep, so I think that's about it, and I hope this was a little bit useful for everyone. So basically, if you are using not the optimal amplifier, even though if you have a proper decent sound, if you match your loudspeaker with an amplifier that matches it really well, that will bring on a big transformation. Also finding the placement, huge transformation again. And if you want to go to the next step, then you go on into modifying your loudspeaker. So for example, Danny at GR Research, he his YouTube channel, he has a YouTube channel, his company is GR Research. And I'm telling it because he is showing this, and he shows a lot of tweaks, a lot of modifications that you can do to your loudspeaker. He explains what it is, how it's done, and he also offers kits for that. So that's one thing that you can do to vastly improve your loudspeaker. Or what you can do is, if you already know about loudspeaker design, you can go ahead and find out these things by yourself. If you stick around with my channel, you will learn a lot about this, so in time you will be able to overtake that for yourself as well. How to optimize your crossover, how to improve on your cabinet structure, and how to improve the matching of your drivers, maybe change your tweeter if needed, or change the woofer. But that's a really it's a bit of a ballsy move. And the ultimate one is just get a proper loudspeaker cabinet. And when you build a new cabinet for your loudspeakers, that's like the final step, and that's what will bring you the last bit of gains. Because even with quite expensive loudspeakers, if you go on and build your cabinet, you can step up a lot with the sound quality towards the road of making it more natural and more realistic. I can also give you pointers on how to make it more showy, but that's really not something I want to stay away from. That's not my listening preference. If it's yours, it's fine. I will still give you advice for that, but my expertise really is on making natural sounding cabinets, and advice on that. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and enjoy your loudspeakers. And if you don't, that's what you should do about it. Thank you. Bye bye.